Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
All right, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's, Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Jeff Mosher and Adam Caplan bring you the Inside the Birds podcast. And Adam joins me on Fridays for this edition of Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, Adam, we welcome you to a happy hour Friday. What's going on, man?
Good to talk to you. Yeah, it is the bye week. It is the Friday during a bye week. Eagles will reconvene, I believe, on Monday morning. Have that usual short practice after the bye, get back to the regular practice week as they lead up on Wednesday, as they lead up to playing the Washington football team, who's won 4 in a row but plays the hated Cowboys this week. So lots going on here around the Eagles. Yeah,
well, it's good. You know, it kind of fell perfectly. The week the Eagles have the bye, that you have this juicy NFC East matchup here between Dallas and Washington. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I want to look back a little bit because you guys during Inside the Birds podcast this week really broke down some interesting things. The Eagles beat the Jets, obviously. Gardner Minshew was really the story, and, of course, you have the people on the Minshew side. Of course, the Eagles are going to stick with Hurts, but that is the plan the rest of the way. Let's get that out of the way, correct? The Eagles are going to stick with Jalen Hurts.
No matter what happens. I know that the question that people have asked, well, what happens if he struggles? That's okay. They'll leave him in there. They want to get the full evaluation. They kind of know where he is at the 3-quarter mark. They want to see how he does, and potentially also, you know, what if – I remember talking to the Eagles when Wentz was dealing with injuries in 2018 to 2019, and they wanted to see how he would do during the playoffs. Now, obviously, against Seattle, he got knocked out by a cheap shot by Jadeveon Clowney. But the bottom line is you'd love to see Hurts as a quarterback in the wild card round getting work in a playoff-type setting. That would be the best-case scenario over the next – 4 games plus the potential playoff, getting that 7th seed, which is probably which obviously the best they can do. But they're still in it, very much in it. As a matter of fact, that I can't emphasize how huge that win was against the Jets, because had they would have lost there, they would have fallen to 5-8 instead of being 6-7. A huge difference. This is not Major League Baseball where one game's not going to matter. You only get now 17 games. So whether it's a conference game or not really doesn't matter. It counts against your record. I think people need to understand that.
Well, and it all falls evident to that last night where Minnesota won the game and actually moved ahead of you because of common opponent record. They have a better percentage in common games, and that put Minnesota ahead of Philadelphia. So that shows you how big, you know, all these games are at this time of the year. Let's look at the tape for Minshew. What are we seeing? Because a lot of people say, well, does he give you a better chance to win?
The thing that he does a better job of, this is clear, and we kind of knew this going in. He's a better processor. It's not that he's just started more. That's the thing where he was really, really good as a rookie in 2019 when he won 6 AFC Rookie of the Week awards. And coached by John DeFilippo, you might remember him here, who's the guy who coached Carson Wentz as a rookie, one of the best quarterback developers in the National Football League. So Minshew was terrific that season, really ahead of the curve. His overall record's bad, but you have to look at the rest of the team, how bad their defense was, just how bad of a football team they've been. But there are issues with him. The ball lacks juice, doesn't have a lot of velocity on it. He's a touch passer. He doesn't really drive the football. You saw, and there were no issues with weather last week, that the ball lacks some action, and that's a concern. You know, they barely, on one of the touchdowns that got it, the ball barely had to get there. He had to stop for it. You don't want that. That's Hurts got a better arm. There's no doubt. That's not in question. But it's just that Minshew, you know, you ask the question, would they be better off if they're trying to get in the playoffs, or is he a better quarterback now? Yes, I think Minshew, if you just line up just passing, yes. But Hurts gives you that element of the run, which Minshew does not give you. He's a scrambler. He had one nice scramble last week. But Hurts at his best is a guy, when the pocket breaks down, he could run and get you a first down. And you don't design runs for Minshew. That's a difference. It's certainly subjective. There's no way to really know that. But if you're just looking for a guy who will execute the offense without running, it would be Minshew.
You find it interesting, Adam. I hear a lot. I don't know about you, but I hear a lot of, well, Hurts doesn't have a strong enough arm. He can't push the ball down the field. Yet the same breath, they're saying they'd rather see Minshew play.
Well, I saw it with that 91-yard pass and run in week 2 to Quez Watkins, where I know some people question Hurts' arm strength. It's not elite. I would say it's above average to good. He's got enough for most throws. You're not going to make every throw, but he can make most throws. Well, Minshew, you're not going to ask him to make every throw because he can't do it. It's just that accuracy, I think, overall is going to be better with Minshew. In fact, I know that just because this is what the tape shows. And there's more you can do from a pass game standpoint because he's just a better passer. In terms of accuracy, just functioning within an offense, yes, that's kind of where both guys are. But they both haven't started 4 or 5 seasons. That's what we have to understand. And by the way, we had Joe Banner on. We've interviewed Joe Banner a lot, the former Eagles and Browns president. He does such a phenomenal job of breaking down not only Jalen Hurts about where he is, about what he sees and what he knows. I mean, we talk about Donovan McNabb when he was younger, and I'll also remember when Doug Peterson was the starting quarterback, Donovan's first year, about what to look for and what he knows about the situation. It's just phenomenal. I don't want to give it away, but it's on our interview with him, which you can find on any of our podcasting platforms and also on YouTube.
Let's go to Miles Sanders because there has been a lot of conversation about, is Jordan Howard the best guy? Boston Scott, when he plays, he gives you something. Gainwell needs more touches. But Miles Sanders got his first real opportunity to kind of be the guy. How did he handle it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, look, he's been the starter the whole season. It's just that he hasn't been healthy enough for a sustained period of time where you knew that he was going to be the guy in this unbelievably run-oriented offense. Number 1 in total yards, the National Football League, total carries. It's really remarkable what they're doing. And Miles Sanders, you ran hard with velocity. This is the notes that we got from our sources. Ran with velocity and power, vision, finish runs, great at setting up blocks, ran in daylight. This is something you couldn't see off TV. You can't really see this part of it. Though this one person we spoke to said that despite all that, he thought there were at least 15 yards that Sanders left on the field. You know, guys like Sanders who are always trying to break the long run, not always, but a lot of times do. They will go if the plays to the A gap, he might go to the B gap. And that's just the way it is. That's what happens when you leave yards on the field. You just see something innate in you, which you can't really teach. It's just something that they really do, and you don't want to correct it because it makes them special that way. And Sanders was phenomenal before he re-injured that troublesome lingering ankle injury. So that does concern. But again, they are on a bye this week. Yeah,
he went down and he noticeably grabbed that thing, and we'll see. You're right. They do have the bye. We'll see if he ends up coming back from that. The other guy, I thought Gainwell, had the touchdown run. I'm interested could Gainwell be a guy they could put in the slot and do some more things with?
Well, he's not really a slot receiver. You could, a couple times a game, yes, you could line him up in the slot. You could line him up outside at that X position. We had Ryan Silverfield on, his head coach from Memphis prior to the season, and he actually mentioned that. He goes, you remember now, not only do we move our guys around, Silverfield said that they give their running backs a ton of responsibility in the pass game. Antonio Gibson now is starting running back for Memphis. He started as a slot receiver for Memphis. They used Gainwell a lot as a pass receiver. He was phenomenal in 2019. And let's not forget that he opted out last year. So that's probably why his usage has been inconsistent. But I'd love to see him used more, no doubt about it.
Gainwell with the touchdown last week, so we'll see if they expand him too. All right, the wide receivers, let's look at, we're at the we're at the bye week here. Wide receivers still seem to be an issue, but they got Goddard way more involved last week. Was that play calling? Is that Minshew? How do you read the way that Goddard was used last week? And then we'll look at the wideouts.
Both. Actually, 3 things. Matchups. The Jets don't cover tight ends well. That's been a real problem for them. They're really bad at safety. That's number 1. Number 2, he was my player of the game in our pregame show going into the game because I thought, based on the way that Minshew throws the ball short and intermediate, he should be heavily targeted. Well, what do you have, 7? I know it was 6 for 6. The other one I think was a penalty. But he caught all 6. He had 2 touchdowns. And he just was dominant. They couldn't handle him. I just, to me, Mike, going forward, he should lead them. He should be the focal point of the passing game, not Devontae Smith. Smith should be 1A, Goddard 1. And by the way, it was the heaviest they used 3 tight ends this season. Tyree Jackson, who's obviously converted from quarterback to tight end, he actually started the game, and they started in 3 tight end sets.
I thought, too, in that game, Adam, I thought they did, I think it was, 14 catches that went to either tight ends or running backs. We don't see them use the running backs out of the backfield enough, in my opinion. Screen game, little dump-offs. Yeah. That's not a big part of their game, but it was on Sunday, and I know the Jets are really bad at defending running backs.
Well, wait till you see, on the coaching tape, you could see it. They are so far off the running backs, and there's so much space. Either you check. First of all, the Eagles called screens. That was part of it, and the other ones were check downs. So you got to give Minshew credit for processing and saying, you know what, we've got something here. Instead of what Wentz would do, one of the things that really bothered us, particularly myself on Inside the Birds last year, with Mosher and I, every week we'd say, why won't he check it down? Stop trying to make the big play. It's there. This 5 to 7 yard completion is good as a 5 or 7 yard run. By the way, coaches call a 5 yard run or more an explosive play. That's an explosive play. You should check it down, and Minshew did a great job of that.
And then, of course, the wide receivers, which, they're not getting anything from Rieger. That we know. Watkins had a play or two in the game. Smith, though, has really been taken out the last couple of weeks. Why are the receivers, even Smith, struggling?
It was weird. They went with more. Now, we knew they would run the ball like crazy, and they did. They went with 3 tight ends, and they had Rieger on the field a little bit more than we expected than Smith. That was really the only thing. I would expect that to change after the bye. In fact, I'm really interested to see what their game plan is against Washington, because Washington's defense, Mike, and their 4-game win streak is really gotten better. And can you believe it? Casey Tuhill, a former 7th-round pick for the Eagles, is now starting for Washington because they have injuries at the end. The Eagles should have kept him. That was a guy they just never gave a real chance, and he could have helped them this season.
The offensive line, needless to say, has been dominating.
Unreal.
But just how good. And you wonder if they're playing against a team that has more talent than them, how much does that line equalize things?
Well, listen, the Saints game, the Saints have the best defense the Eagles have played this season. The Eagles beat the bleep out of them. This is a family show, so I won't say what I want to say. But they absolutely mauled them. It was shocking. I didn't see that coming. No one did. And the teams know what's coming, but they double team in the just in our sources notes. Well, this past game, the Jets are really small up front, and it showed. Their double teams at the point of attack were outstanding. They're very cohesive. Their timing, their footwork's great. Their hand usage is great. Blocking technique. They're obviously going to run like hell every game. This is what they have to do, no matter who the quarterback is. That's the game plan. And I expect them to do that, even against Washington, who's got a good front. I expect them to run well. If they don't run for 150 yards in each week at least, that's probably going to be a loss for them if they don't do that.
All right, Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. It's football at 4. Let's look at the Eagles' defense at the bye week here versus the Jets. They lost. I talked about this. I think I was talking about this yesterday with somebody. I said, this is a team that lost Brandon Brooks, who's a Pro Bowler. They lost Sayamala, who's a very good player. They lost Brandon Graham, and they're 6-7. That defensive line without Graham, where are they? Kind of, you forget that Graham wasn't here. I mean, their line could be better, but what role did they have in the improvement of this defense?
Yeah, and look, I think when you look at it, we knew Graham not being there was going to be a problem because he's a really good run guy. Obviously, his effort, he's a good pass rusher, big with the quarterback pressures. It's going to be a problem. They have not recovered from that. There's no doubt. Derek Barnett has really come on lately. That's been a good sign. Jayvon Hargrave, best game he's had in about 6 weeks. He was phenomenal in this game. We don't know what the problem's been up to last week, but he was great. I mean, he's been healthy. Cox had some good plays. Their linebackers as blitzers did a good job. They covered fairly well. Well, they missed some tackles in the first half against Tevin Coleman, but overall they played really well. Then secondary-wise, man, did they start off badly. They gave up big plays. Zach Wilson really played well the first half. I was shocked, Mike, at the lack of pressure. That just floored me. I was very surprised. But then they disguised well, and they forced him in a bad place in the second half, and he really pressed.
You're right. The first half, I mean, it was a shootout back and forth, and they couldn't get a stop. And then the third quarter, of course, you can't really say the defense played better. They weren't on the field at all. It wasn't until the fourth quarter that Epps had that interception that really kind of finally, I was watching the game with my father. There's like 6 minutes left. I said, if the Jets score here, it's a one-score game. And with this defense, the way they're playing today, I didn't feel comfortable were confident at all. But they got that interception, and Epps is a guy who has made some plays, man.
Oh, no doubt. This Marcus Epps, what a story he's been. Former Viking, doing a good job. He may figure in as a starter next year. Who knows with the two starters now on expiring contracts. And also, I do want to mention Zach Mcpherson, his best game as an Eagle, did a good job after Nelson got hurt. He's their top backup outside corner. They don't have anybody else. This is a problem. The personnel department's had a good offseason, but that was a mistake, not getting a veteran corner to play on the outside as for depth. We're just talking about as a backup. But they've gotten away with it this season, and McPherson got thrown in there and did a much better job than the other games he was in.
Yeah, and then you mentioned, they lost Steve Nelson. I guess he's going to be back. Slay's been outstanding. Yeah. I mean, this offseason we kept talking about how bad the corner situation was going to be because, Slay was coming off of an up-and-down year. He's been excellent. Nelson's really kind of helped solidified the other side, and they drafted, McPherson. And I actually brought this up, I think, earlier to Andrew. How has he actually played? And you just kind of said, hey, he's not hurting them when he actually goes into the game. So the secondary has kind of turned into a surprise for this team.
It has. Now, look, you're playing the Jets. They got off to a terrible start last week, as you said. High-scoring game. Defense, because of the special team snafu. They had a short field. For the life of me, and I don't understand why Gannon didn't come after Zach Wilson. Now, he's disguised a lot in the second half, and Wilson was confused. But it was very disappointing with the lack of pressure in the first half, particularly with the blitz. They didn't really blitz very much. It's not nearly as much as I thought they would. But nevertheless, they got the job done. They play the very aggressive Taylor Heineke this coming week. That will be more of a challenge because he is very aggressive and he's a sort of a gunslinger. That will be a fun matchup.
And then the last couple of weeks here, these linebackers. T.J. Edwards got an extension. They obviously like him. They lost Taylor. They brought in Singleton. But this was a huge weak spot at the beginning of the year. Here we are at the bye week. How has the linebackers been for this team?
Better. Look, they're better. T.J. Edwards is better. Look, they had some runs, some missed tackles where Alex Singleton is his tackling machine. You know that. It was better. It was definitely better. It's never going to be great or elite because they don't have the type of players. They're holding their own. They've been better. They've definitely improved as the season has gone along, but they face Antonio Gibson, who I mentioned earlier, for Washington, who's really coming on in the run game.
Should be interesting, Washington and Dallas this week. Obviously, you got I don't know. Do you think, Adam, it's far-fetched to say that Washington could sweep Dallas?
I mean, anything could happen, but I don't see that happening. Now, Dallas is not a great team. I don't know if they're as good as their 8-4 record would indicate. They've had some injuries. They're getting Cooper will play full-time. He didn't play full-time last week against New Orleans because he came off the COVID list and wasn't feeling well. Their offensive lines had some changes. They've not been good in the run game. Defensively, they've given up some plays. It's interesting. Trayvon Diggs is a very good football player. He's having a breakout season, but he can be beat, believe it or not. Now, I know the Eagles don't throw it a lot to the receivers, but I don't think Dallas is as good as their record would indicate. They're still the favorite, clearly. They've got a 2-game lead, but Washington and Dallas have not played yet, I don't think. So they
like
play. You said,
that's what I say. Yeah. I bring this up, Adam, because if Washington was to win this week, okay, they play this week and they win. If they play again in 3 weeks, if Washington won that game, Dallas plays Arizona. If they lost that game, they could play the Eagles at the end of the year. Now, if Eagles take care of business against Washington both times and the Giants, you could have a situation where the game in Week 18 would be for the division.
Yeah, I know. Strange things have happened. We saw this in, 2008? Was it
2008, yep.
Yeah, that I'll never forget being in the press box. Make sure you remind me to talk about that story. Moshe and I have some great stories about the craziness. No one believed it could happen. It was like dominoes. What had to happen?
Oh, that was when the Raiders went across the country and beat Tampa Bay. That was Gruden's last game out there.
It was unbelievable. None of us thought when we got to the press box at Lincoln Financial Field it could happen. We all dismissed it. God, I mean, because the scenario, the playoff scenarios that the NFL sent out were so absurd for them to be able to get in. And they hit every one of them. I'm like, I give up. I don't doubt anything anymore.
Adam Caplan, don't forget Inside the Birds podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And, of course, they do the Inside the Birds pregame show every week on YouTube. Bye week this week, they'll be taking the bye with them. But all of the content will still be flowing over at InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast.
Yes. Oh, one note on that. Jeff and I dropped a show this morning. It's the review of the first 3 quarters of the season, a preview of the final 4 of the offense. And our defensive show drops Monday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern. You'll love that one. We get through it. Every position, what we see, what we've heard, what we need to see, and we'll do that also for defense on Monday. And then we're working on Wednesday's content as we get into Washington week.
All right. Well, check that out, everybody. Make sure you subscribe to the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, Adam Caplan here on Happy Hour Friday. Adam, take care, man.
You too, thanks.
That's Adam Caplan from InsideTheBirds.com. Him, Mosher, and DeCecco do a great job, of course, over at Inside the Birds. And they power our Football at 4 segment each and every day at 4 o'clock right here on the Sports Bash.